Hi and welcome to SCW, the wrestling channel here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now, leave in the comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. Ask SCW is back once again answering your questions in the wrestling community. If you would like to have a question for the next episode, leave the hashtag AskSCW either in the comments here on YouTube or you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. All should be coming up on your screen right about now. Just gone over 400 subscribers. Thank you so much to everyone that's been supporting the channel. Please continue to spread the word of SCW and let's see how far and wide we can get it. The road to 500 starts here and now. So without further ado, let's get into our first question. This week comes from Noob and Co. In fact, we've got a few questions to kick off this week. Who's going to win the men's and women's Money in the Bank ladder matches? What are your thoughts on Johnny and Candice's wrestling's heel turn? And will Charlotte Flair be a huge draw on NXT during the Wednesday Night War? Well, we're going to start off then with the Money in the Bank ladder matches. So at this particular moment, we don't know all the participants. So I think it's kind of more fair to give a prediction if and when we know who that sixth person is going to be. We have an idea though. I mean, we know that the matches have been put together. Of course, on SmackDown, we've got Carmella versus Mandy Rose to sort out the last competitor there, and we've got Otis and Dolph Ziggler for the last remaining spot on those sides. But I don't think either of those will be, either of those winners of those matches will become Money in the Bank this year. So looking at the participants in the men's so far that we've got Apollo Crews, we've got Aleister Black, we've got Rey Mysterio, and from SmackDown we've got Daniel Bryan and we've got King Corbin. I think that we've got three potential winners looking at it. Aleister Black is probably, I think, the foregone favourite with a lot of people. It seems that a push is on for him as well. A match with him and Drew seems probably a likely destination, but I'm not so sure he needs Money in the Bank to do it, if I'm being brutally honest. He's going up the ladder naturally, and sometimes WWE likes to give that briefcase to someone that's not so obvious, and they've got time to build that person up and they can put them back in that position. Now, when you look on Monday Night Raw, I know that a lot of the top stars are missing at the moment, but when you've got the likes of Seth Rollins, you've got Randy Orton, Edge, we said we're building Aleister Black, Kevin Owens is there. I feel that the main event scene is quite healthy on Monday Night Raw. When I look on SmackDown, I look and I see, at the moment, we've got Braun Strowman and The Fiend. That's it. Roman Reigns is no longer around at the moment. Goldberg, of course, is not here. There's no idea of bringing Brock back anytime soon. So we need to build another championship contender on SmackDown. And this is where my prediction is going to go with that. Daniel Bryan has been there and done it before, but I think at the moment he's sort of quite comfortable in the area of the card he's at. The person I'm going to pick is King Corbin, and my reasoning for that is because, yes, he's won it before. I think it's probably an underwhelming pick with a lot of fans, but I've kind of got used to that in the last number of years, probably the last 3 or 4 Money in the Banks. I've been a bit disappointed with the winner, if I'm being brutally honest. But when I look at King Corbin now, he won it before and he wasn't ready. In my opinion, he is ready now. He's kind of building. He's one of the best heels around today because people hate him or they find him boring. And the way he does his style suits him, and it suits him being a heel. It's all in the character and the gimmick and what King Corbin represents. And the King gimmick is working as well. He's finally sorted out his look also. Everything's coming together. And I think with King Corbin, you haven't got to pull the trigger so soon. And I think that with Money in the Bank recently, it's been blown so quickly. It deserves someone to hold the briefcase for a long and lengthy time to when their time is to shine to become champion. And I think King Corbin is the perfect candidate for that. Looking at the women's side, I'm going to reverse it. I think it's going to be more likely the more obvious candidate. Now, if we look at the people we've got in the match currently, from the Raw side, we've got Asuka, we've got Nia Jax, and we've got Shayna Baszler. From the SmackDown side, we've got Dana Brooke, which is a surprise out of nowhere, and Lacey Evans. Now, I don't see it going on SmackDown at all. Surprise, shocker alert. The Raw side definitely for me gets that briefcase, and I think that they're going to go with Shayna Baszler. And my reasoning for it is because sometimes WWE has this idea of pushing someone to the moon. But when it comes to that big moment, like at WrestleMania, for example, they get cold feet for whatever reason, and they go to Money in the Bank, and they think that this is the safe place to give them that briefcase, to give them that first push of the championship. So it almost feels like they kind of get the acceptability if it doesn't kind of work out with that person holding the belt. I feel Alberto Del Rio is a perfect example when he won the men's Money in the Bank ladder match in 2011. He was on his way. He won the Royal Rumble. He lost at WrestleMania, which I thought at the time was a surprise. And then he went on to win Money in the Bank and then cashed it in within like a month and became champion. And I feel that that's kind of the level we could be going here with Shayna Baszler. Not that she needs it to beat Becky. The program is there and ready. But I feel that the Baszler is the direction they're going to go. As for Johnny and Candice wrestling, I'm actually really enjoying the direction. I think that it's really good what they've got with these two going on at the minute. The first sort of husband and wife combination of what could become champions. That's what, obviously what their intentions are. Candice LeRae needed this. She needed some form of direction. She felt lost in NXT for me. I never believed her as a candidate, as someone that could become women's champion. But I now kind of feel that she could have that goal in mind and it would feel kind of relevant and believable, and I feel that she lacked that before. As for Johnny wrestling, yeah, I know a lot of people prefer him as a face, but I like this twist, I like this change of character, and I like what they're putting together. I thought the video package they had this past week on NXT was fantastic, and yeah, I want to see more, and I think that's where we can leave it at this stage, because we haven't seen too much of it since the initial heel turn with them as a partnership and pairing in this heel dynamic. So I'm excited to see where it goes, and hopefully it's going to bring as much great TV as what we saw this past week on NXT. As for Charlotte Flair, I don't expect she's going to be a big ratings draw. Nothing against Charlotte Flair herself. She's one of the best women wrestlers of all time. But I mean, in this current climate, when we had the Survivor Series, the Wednesday Night War took a dramatic direction more in WWE's favour for a couple of weeks because the brand WWE was coming to NXT. I feel that a lot of people, when they come individually, didn't really help the ratings. I mean, we had the likes of Seth Rollins do that and Becky Lynch, and the ratings didn't beat AEW on that week. They may have done on their segment, but they didn't on the overall when you look at the ratings of the show. So I don't think it's going to be a great ratings poll in that way. But what I would turn around and say is for Charlotte Flair herself, it gives her a lot of fresh matches, and again, the direction is where it's going and where it's good, because with Charlotte Flair, you can turn around and see like she's beaten people of the past, she's beaten people of the present. Now it's time to beat the future and to establish herself as the greatest of all time. And I like that twist in that direction. And clearly, she's going to go through quite a few of that roster before she loses the championship. The question is going to be who will take the belt off of Charlotte Flair in NXT, because the second they do, they become a megastar overnight. And I mean, for me, the one I would go for is for Rhea Ripley to win the belt back later down the line. I would prefer it on a main show as well, rather than actually on an NXT show, because I mean, Rhea Ripley was the future. She came to a main roster show and she lost the belt. So it would make Rhea Ripley look better on a main roster perspective if she was to win the belt back. But time will tell on it. Yeah, it's certainly interesting directions for all those characters mentioned there, and some exciting things to look forward to within WWE at present and NXT. Aussie Lucian blogs and podcasts of our next question. Does this scandal hit Dream's potential NXT title run? Well, this was inevitably going to come up, this question this week, and obviously it's a bit of a touchy subject. So I'm going to give a quick answer on this one. For those that are obviously unaware of the story, what's going around regarding the Velveteen Dream, he has been accused of allegedly sending explicit photos to minors. Now, of course, this is an accusation that's been put out on him. He has denied it on Twitter. The person that brought it out put it on Reddit. There has been a voice note going around as well. I believe the person on Reddit said that they weren't sure if this was a hacker or what it was, but they didn't quite know what to do. And yeah, I mean, Velveteen Dream has said that a photo of him has been sent without his consent, which implies it's perhaps been a hacker of some description, and that he is looking into getting a third party involved to try and rectify this, which of course, should this be true, then you would say that his career is finished, and if it's false, then, I mean, it's really damaging on a reputation alone, and that's, awful if it's not true, and you would feel very sorry for him if that is the case, because it can ruin his career regardless with this coming out. As for an NXT title run, for me, I would say it's finished. There's no way, it's certainly in the short term, that that's going to happen. I would not be surprised if the storyline was completely dropped off TV, if Velveteen Dream was to not appear on TV, Adam Cole didn't for a couple of weeks, and then come back as if we've forgotten about it and they move on to a new number one contender, because at the time Dream hadn't officially become number one contender. I personally don't think he was going to win the NXT Championship at this time anyway. I know a lot of people were rooting for it, but I think that the Dexter Lumis getting involved in that tag team match, I thought that could be a natural feud, and I wondered if Dexter was going to cost him somewhere down the line, because Dexter is better as a natural heel. It doesn't work for me as a face, but storyline terms here obviously is where the question is heading, but for this, I don't see it continuing at this particular moment, and obviously it's a much more pressing issue at hand, and hopefully at some stage we find out what's going to happen here. But as I say, if it's not true for Velveteen Dream, then I hope he has that opportunity to clear his name, because clearly not good if it's not true. But of course, if it is true, then even for his career, that could be it. Next question comes from Headlock Talk Podcast. Fill in the blank. Your next NXT World Heavyweight Champion is Keith Lee. That's the guy that's got to do it for me. Now, I would say that Tommaso Ciampa has some unfinished business when it comes to the NXT World Championship. But if you look at it, I mean, he had a program with Adam Cole. It went on for a number of months. I'm not sure what many other options there are right now in NXT of people that would be believable. You could go back to Johnny Gargano, but again, we've had a long program there. It's time to see someone different, someone fresh. The only thing for me is Keith Lee needs to lose that North American Championship in a way that's safe, that you can push him on to that main event scene. And the best way to do that is a multi-man match. I mean, they had the triple threat match. That was a perfect opportunity. He doesn't need to be involved in the decision and can just move on to face Adam Cole. So that's the way to do it. He could become a double champion. There's another option you can do with it as well. And then he could perhaps vacate the NXT North American Championship. Other candidates, Finn Balor, I guess, would be one. But, I mean, Finn Balor, of course, is playing heel at the moment. Gargano, as I said, is playing heel as well. Both have had matches. Walter, as well, a heel, is the UK champion. But, I mean, I don't know if there's an ability for him to come over and compete in the States at the minute. So, it's hard to say. But for me, I think at the moment, Keith Lee, when I think about all the options there are in NXT, he's the guy that should be carrying the brand. He's got something about him. If anything, I feel he should be on Raw and SmackDown. I think he's got a lot to offer. And I think he is someone that could be a company guy in the long term, 5-10 years down the line, that could carry the WWE brand. I really think the sky that is the limit for Keith Lee. He's proven himself to be someone that fans can get behind. So for me, Keith Lee is that guy. I want to see him as a world champion somewhere in WWE in the very near future. Next question comes from a beardy WWE. Will Nia Jax botch a powerbomb and throw Dana Brooke off the top of the building? Just kidding. Thank God for that as well. We don't want another Halloween Havoc 1995, do we? But the question goes on to say, do you think they're building Drew McIntyre too much? Like he's winning so easily, they're going to run out of viable opponents pretty quickly at this rate. Well, yeah, I suppose so. But at the same time, you need to build him as the champion. And what I really liked was the way they booked him against the Big Show a couple of weeks ago. I know a lot of people were kind of like, oh, God. But it felt a believable match because it was just after his WrestleMania match that maybe they might screw McIntyre out of it. He came out really strong. Big Show is, he's a legend, however we look and think about it. And, I thought that was really well put together. Then now he's going through this mid-card stable. And that's what we have to remember. It's a mid-card stable. They've been pushed as the main event picture. And you could argue this last week on Raw was perhaps not the strongest booking for this trio, but the future's very bright for Andrade, Angel Garza, and for Austin Theory. They've not been buried, in my opinion, as I've seen that going around online, that they've been buried in within a couple of weeks. That's utter nonsense. These guys are young guys. I mean, Austin Theory's 22 years old. He's got a long road ahead of him, and I see bright things in his future. In fact, I have even considered doing a video to say I see him right now, and I mean this when I say it. I look and I see Randy Orton at 22. Randy Orton was on SmackDown 2002, Austin Theory, and he's kind of that finding himself mode at the minute. He's kind of maybe a bit green, but there's something there, you can see it. And I think if you give Austin Theory 3-4 years, Randy Orton won the World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam 2004. and you know, he was 24 years old. I think Austin Theory could be someone along that line. So, but if you look at it as a question of Drew McIntyre winning, yeah, you would run out of people, but you need to start building these new megastars, and we can't keep relying on these part-timers. Brock Lesnar comes in and destroys the person that's the champion, you know, whether it's in 7 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever, and we can't have Goldberg doing the same. We need to have like current talent that is seen as that level, and Drew McIntyre is someone that can be built to that level. Yes, he's going for opponents. Yes, he's being booked mega strong every week. He's got Seth Rollins and Money in the Bank. I expect him to come through it. But we look at the Raw side, and we've got Edge, we've got Aleister Black, we've got Randy Orton, we've got Kevin Owens. There's such a top main event level scene there, and they might want to bring Brock back at some point. So they've got a lot of opponents that they can use for Drew McIntyre, and I don't think it's going to look so bad. I understand what you mean with the fact that you want to see someone as believable that they can lose. You don't want to go and think, oh, it's just obvious Drew McIntyre is going to win. I felt that all through the years as a child when I watched Hulk Hogan, that it was just like, okay, it's obvious Hogan's going to win. So yeah, I get your standpoint of where it comes from. The thing is that they have to use Drew McIntyre to build him into what this megastar, but they need to pull another star or two up with him so that when he drops the belt to that person, A, it's believable, but also it makes that superstar that gets the belt a star as well. And that's the key to this. And at the moment, I think Drew McIntyre's booking in 2020 has been perfect. I would go on the record currently to say it has been booked really well, and I hope that they do continue in this, because if they drop the ball within a month and they just change to have a new flavour of the month, or Brock comes back, it's going to be so damaging on the booking, on superstars that have lost to Drew McIntyre, and for Drew himself. So yeah, it's vital that they continue on a good path, and I do think right now that path is very well with Drew McIntyre. I still feel so sad that he's not performing in front of a crowd, because I think that's where you would really get the test of how well this is working. Because if the crowd are reacting in the right way, then you know that you're definitely onto something. Next question comes from Mike. Italian Habs Mike in the house for us now. Though Drew McIntyre isn't to blame for the low Raw ratings, do you think if this continues that Vince panics and puts the WWE title back on Brock Lesnar? If history is any indication, Vince will do the title change as he's done that in the past. Well, do you know, ironically enough, I did a video sort of based on around this topic a little bit, and it was saying how we shouldn't rely on part-timers and why the Raw ratings are low. So go and check that video out, because that's a 10-minute of me going on about that situation for you. But I will give you what I think is a good condensed answer on this. Is that, yeah, I wouldn't put it past Vince McMahon. If he doesn't believe that this is working, like I said, the ratings are lower, that's his only indication right now if Drew McIntyre is getting over the way that they are trying to get him over. And yeah, I wouldn't put it past them to put the belt back on Brock Lesnar, because WWE goes with the tried and tested. They need and should have been for years building for the future. Now, the counter argument on this is that maybe the stars they tried to put in those positions over the last few years, when they've got there, just haven't done the job to stay there. They get complacent, or they just can't connect in that way. You know, sometimes for a lot of us, we want to see someone become champion, and once they become champion, that feeling goes away. We go, oh, well, they did it now. Rather than seeing what their run can bring next. It almost feels like the journey to the belt is where the story ends, where really it's where the story should just be beginning. And that's what they need to do on building these megastars. And that's the point right now with Drew McIntyre. The story went so far, and now they've got to keep going with it, because the story doesn't just finish with Drew McIntyre got his WrestleMania moment. After all that hard work, he got the WWE Championship. Now it's, what can Drew McIntyre do with the WWE Championship? Can he become the biggest star of the company at this particular point going forward, being the guy that does the Make-A-Wishes, does the TV appearances, does all that? When we can start doing all that stuff again, is he the guy to do that? And at the same time, can he bring one or two people up with him? You know, say what you want about any era in wrestling, there was always a group of guys that worked together. The Attitude Era, of course, is always the best example. Yes, Stone Cold Steve Austin was the number one guy. We had The Rock there. We had Triple H. We had Mick Foley as Mankind, or Dude Love, or Cactus Jack. We had Kane, The Undertaker, you know, Big Show. We had all these people people that were there to fill in the roles when it was needed to be. And you can't just have the company based on one. And I think that's where there's been a big mistake for a lot of the years, is that you've had these superstars where it was the one. John Cena was the one. Roman Reigns, the one. And a lot of the time when you see that and you see the part-timers being brought back, all these superstars that go through year in and year, doing show after show after show, they get to WrestleMania and they don't get that big WrestleMania moment. They get put in a battle royal or they get put in a low card match. And for those casual fans that come in, they don't look at that competitor and go, they're anything special. And I think what's even worse is they don't connect year to year. You look at it and say, taking like New Japan Pro Wrestling, I'm a casual New Japan watcher. I know from year to year, I see progression when I look through the storytelling. I turn around and I see Okada in the main event, but someone like Jay White's been elevated to go and have a match with him. Jay White then is involved in the next year in around that main event area. And you can see that progression going year on year. Within WWE, I see Kofi Mania last year. Where was Kofi this year? He was stuck in the mid-card. He was going for the tag titles in a triple threat ladder match. He should have been at a high area. And you look at the people that win those high-profile matches this year against the part-timers, they need to be in high-profile matches next year. And if anything, those part-timers need to start becoming lower down the card. Yeah, they can be a big deal, but they can be a bit lower down the card and push on that next level of superstar. Because next year is going to need more people pushed up. Because eventually, in 5 years or so, a lot of them part-timers are not going to still be wrestling. And we're going to be left with a lot of wrestlers that did not get that big moment. And then it's going to come to a point where we're going to be stuck in 1995 and we need to build new stars because all the biggest wrestlers are not around. And, you know, that's kind of what the new generation was. It was building those new superstars to where we got to the Attitude Era and we could push them with a rocket to the moon. And I think that that's what's needed in wrestling right now. I kind of feel like at the moment with that, I felt that we were in 95 a few years ago. Instead of having that progression over 1 year, 2 years to get to 97, 98, we're kind of in 96 at the moment. And I feel that it's still going to be another few years because it's at a slower pace the way this is going, that we're going to get to where that big boom can happen again. But hopefully, somewhere in the near future, WWE can start booking things like that and we can get back to having these megastars. Because the company, the brand isn't enough. You need to have a megastar because that's what's going to bring your casual audience in. And that's where what brings ratings up. To go on ratings needs the hardcore demographic, but it needs its casual viewers. And the way the casual viewers come in is where they can relate to 2 or 3 superstars, preferably all of them, but can relate to people within your product, and especially those high-profile ones, because they're the ones that will be in high demand outside of WWE to do those appearances on TV or charities or whatever, and that's what's going to, like I say, bring more people in. Dan the Man Williams with our next question here. Will we see a big change in WWE within the next few years as Vince isn't as involved anymore? We'll have to wait and see how Vince's involvement will be in a few years' time. But I do think that when we start to get Triple H involved more, yeah, I think we will see some more changes. I think there'll be more risks taken on a lot of the younger talent. I do think that Triple H, you know, he's built NXT, and I don't think he wants to keep seeing those people that are built to some form of stardom, some sort of reputation on NXT, to come to Raw and SmackDown and then to fail. I mean, of course, sometimes they do, because naturally they will. They're not going to... You know, you can have people that can work for a small audience and can work for an NXT-style audience, but when you put them in front of a world audience, in front of 2 million people, maybe not everyone is going to connect. I mean, that does happen from time to time, but when you look at it from an NXT point of view, Triple H, I think, would look and see what gets that person to the next level, what is going to push them on. Has he been doing it already? I'm not so sure, but I'd like to think if Triple H had full control over what Vince wasn't making all the calls, I don't think we'd see as many stop-start pushes. I don't think we'd see the likes of Ricochet and Cedric Alexander being given up on. I think that superstars would have their opportunity at pushing things, pushing the envelope a little bit more. We'll have to wait and see. As which structure within shows and stuff like that and deals, I'm sure that we still would see perhaps a lot of the same in perhaps some of the deals, maybe with doing, I don't know, the Saudi Arabia shows, maybe a 3-hour Raw would still exist. I mean, Triple H just said himself he would love it to be 2 hours, but money and how things work, it works better for 3 hours. So I think in some things, a lot of things would remain the same, but from a talent standpoint, I think we would actually see the future. I do think that we would get, we'd get more stars than what we've got now. I do feel that. Next question comes from DBW Podcast. Is Triple H as bad as Vince McMahon in terms of getting faces over, considering NXT has a horrible track record of good faces and just turns them heel? Interesting, as I just spoke about Triple H quite positively in the last one. I have to be honest, I kind of disagree with that question, and not to cause any offence there, but I actually feel that NXT has produced some good faces. I think the problem is when they've got to the main roster, and I think that Vince has given up on them, or maybe they've not connected with that worldwide audience, which you could blame Triple H that for. But if you look at the likes of like Finn Balor, for example, I think he was a strong face leaving NXT, going to the main roster. Shinsuke Nakamura, I just think Shin was booked horribly from when he went to the main roster. He had a great NXT run. You look through on the women's side of things, I think Becky Lynch has turned out to be a big success as well. You could argue she wasn't the biggest face in NXT at the time, but Bayley was a big face in NXT on the main roster. Yeah, didn't work out. She's a heel. It's more what's happened when they've moved up rather than being in NXT, in my opinion. Because you can look into it and say Johnny Gargano is a heel now, and you may say, well, Finn Balor now is a heel. But at the same time, I look at it and say, well, Johnny Wrestling was a face for a long time, and he needed to just do something to change things up. People can get stale if they stand still all the time, and he's staying in NXT. I mean, most wrestlers by now that have been in NXT, the length of time Johnny Gargano has, would have been on Raw or SmackDown by now. And I think that was a way of keeping Johnny Gargano in NXT and keeping him fresh. Triple H himself, I think, is a master of making heels. And you have to remember, he's got Shawn Michaels by his side, who is one of the greatest baby faces of all time. And I think if Johnny Gargano was to ever go back to being babyface, I think a lot of people loved his face run, and I think that people would believe in it. So, I think we have to agree to disagree on that one, I'm afraid. Next question comes from my good pal, Mr. 1925. Have you checked out NWA Powerr yet? If so, what are your thoughts? Well, I'll be honest with you. This question came in a few days ago. It shows, obviously, if you put the question in, that, it will still get answered. So you can always do the hashtag AskSCW at any point. You can always make sure to leave it on a post or make sure I'm added or tagged it in some form. So I definitely make sure I catch it as well. To be honest with you, I hadn't watched NWA Powerr at that point. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's just purely from a time perspective. When we are living our normal lives, you've got work, you've got your normal sort of way of living and stuff, and I had to kind of prioritise how I chose my wrestling. And I must admit, because I have the WWE Network and I want to catch up on some of the old stuff that I perhaps hadn't seen when I was growing up, or, in some form or fashion, I made the choice that I'd rather put my time in watching something on the network than I did watching something current in NWA Powerr. But I must admit, as we are on lockdown, in quarantine right now, time is on my hands. So I decided to check a few episodes out and give my fear of it on this episode. And I must admit, I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I like the fact that it's very throwback and it's in a studio. It's very old school. It really feels like that it's pure wrestling, tough men and women, just wrestling. And there's no this showbiz, glitz and glamour kind of feel. It's a very, we are here and we are champions and putting our, things are being done the honourable way. And they're still in such a small environment, building storylines, whether it's on an interview table, whether it's going towards the ringside. They've got a small little set and they make as much of what space they've got to make a good show and make things, I suppose, try and feel as fresh and different as possible. And I think that needs to be, applauded, because, we're used to seeing such big arenas and stadiums and stuff, and trying to, we see a lot of things that are recycled and redone all the time, and they're trying to make things kind of, a throwback, so I guess it's been done before in an older time, but they kind of really build themselves out as an alternative and trying to give us something fresh within that alternative. So I really like that. There are some minors on it. I would say that I feel that the production, of course, it's in a studio. It looks, for me, fairly cheap. That's what I would say. It looks like it's not going to be a big product or promotion because of that standpoint. How, when you compare it to WWE, you can see what looks the more slick, more professional looking of the two. Some of the camera shots, when you got that main camera shot of the centre of the ring, it's a bit low for my liking. I would love if they had a higher way up so you can, not get caught with the ropes all the way through. I would prefer that as well. But I do like it. I think it's a good show overall. Studio wrestling as well. There isn't really much of that sort of form of the way that that's done, the way it is. I mean, I know World of Sport, ITV did that as well, and that was kind of, felt like it was more demographic for a younger audience. It was put on like Saturday afternoons, especially for those Americans that maybe watch it, maybe will be aware of it. It was put on like daytime TV, had quite a number of the NXT UK talent you've got now that were involved then. It felt like it was more devoted towards, you know, the family entertainment side of things. This feels like it's more devoted towards the age group of that I'm in with NWA. It doesn't feel like it's devoted to all, but I feel that this is for wrestling fans that miss the wrestling of the old school, the old guard. If you liked NWA in the 80s, this is meant for you, and I think that is that design of it. And there's some familiar names as well, and I like that as well. We've got Eli Drake, you've got the champion Nick Aldis, James Storm, you know, there's some number names in there, Alison Kay, you know, and a lot of superstars that have been in other promotions that we've seen before, whether it's been Impact Wrestling, whether it's been WWE. So there are, you know, familiar faces, and I think it's a good watch. And probably to your delight, I am going to continue watching it. I'm going to catch up on the other episodes that I've missed out on, and I will continue watching it going forward. So yeah, a converted NWA Powerr fan has been made this week. Wrestling Degenerate fan with our next question for us now. What is your favourite tag team that never really got a push or the organisation gave up on and split? Really good question. I think there could be a couple in the near future, depending on how booking goes. I mean, I have this feeling Heavy Machinery are going to break up in the next few weeks. I don't know for sure, but Otis has been a bad tag team partner of late, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tucker turned heel on him. So that would be definitely one. I think Ricochet and Cedric Alexander could be another if they don't get the real opportunity of what they could do as a tag team. I think they could be a real cool act as a tag team. But to go back a bit older, one tag team, they were tag team champions for a long time, but I never really thought that they got the push that they could have got out of it. And they were champions for a while on SmackDown, and then they went to Raw on a draft, and they got lost completely. And that was Paul London and Brian Kendrick. Now, these were two very small guys that were almost like, you know, miniature version of the Rockers at the time, but they were tag team champions on SmackDown at that point for a very long time. And so people might disagree with my answer for that. They're not getting a push per se. But the tag team division on SmackDown at that point was very weak. They were facing the likes of Jamie Noble and Kid Cash was like their top tag team opponents at the time. I remember Deuce and Domino as well. And they went over to Raw, where a lot more tag teams were, and they just got completely lost in the shuffle and were split up. So for me, I kind of feel like they would be one team, but I just remember being really disappointed when I thought to myself, yes, they're going to get all these fresh new tag teams, they'll be in that mix, and instead of actually getting a real opportunity, they just kind of got lost in the shuffle, and I believe then they weren't used, and I think when it got to the next draft, they got split, and I think Brian Kendrick got an opportunity, but I don't think Paul London did from memory. Next question comes from Get Your Wrestling Podcast. Which wrestler has the best interactions with fans, not counting Cena's millions of Make-A-Wish visits? Well, it's hard to... I haven't done any research on the Make-A-Wish stuff, but obviously that's a big part of interacting with fans and stuff. Of course, John Cena, one of the best of ever doing that. But if I go on social media over the last sort of 12 months, interactions on Twitter and Instagram, and I think Chris Jericho has done a great job of interacting with fans. He's found a way of making a lot of things relevant. I mean, we had the little bit of the bubbly, and that was made into loads of different little videos, him and Sammy, the Inner Circle stuff that they've been doing. And there's been a lot of things that he's made really cool on the internet. And I do think that Jericho has this way of interacting at the right time. He doesn't overdo it, and he doesn't underdo it either. He sees opportunities of where he can be very social and you know, use that platform to its maximum advantage. And Chris Jericho is fantastic when it comes to that side of things. So Chris Jericho will be my pick just purely because of the stuff I've seen him do. And he's really got, you know, us in the wrestling community, he's got us, you know, laughing away with some of the stuff he's come up with, and has given us some great opportunities to be creative ourselves. And he retweets and shares them and thinks what great work that us lot do. And if he's got a chance where he wants to call us an arse, he does that as well. So I think Jericho is perfect when it comes to social media. Another person that's been really good with social media I found over the years is Mauro Ranallo. I mean, he always interacts with fans as well. I even remember like a couple of years ago, you know, just having conversation with him, literally. He would reply to you 2 or 3 times, and I thought that was amazing back then that he would actually take the time out. I mean, this guy was the lead on SmackDown at the time, and obviously if you didn't catch him during the show, but if you messaged at the right time when he was actually online, when he was able to, he would respond to fans, he retweets. So yeah, I kind of feel that he's that really good when it comes to that social media interaction. So Mauro Ranallo would be another one that I would give a shout to as well, even though he's not actually technically a wrestler, more of an announcer. Next question comes from Straight Edge Josh. What's your take on Kenta wanting royalties from CM Punk for using the GTS? Personally, I think it's a bit laughable, if I'm being brutally honest. Unless he's trademarked it. It seems if you put a trademark on it, then yeah, it's yours. But how many moves are being used by someone else within wrestling? I mean, every single move gets used by someone else somewhere. Nothing really feels, I suppose, original in a lot of places anymore. It's very hard to find a move that you haven't seen before. I mean, how many people do the Canadian Destroyer, the Figure 4 leg lock, the Sharpshooter, Stunner? Every move gets used again in some form or fashion, and a lot of them are not trademarked. I think, if we're being brutally honest, Kenta probably should feel relieved that it's not being used again as someone's middle move in WWE, because let's be fair, if WWE do have that kind of disdain for CM Punk still, big if on that, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a superstar use the GTS and it not be the finisher and people kicked out of it randomly all over the place. So in some ways, I mean, if it's trademarked, yeah, you have a bit of an argument, but I don't feel too much into it really. WWE News here for our last question this week. Fill in the blank. The best superstar is. Very interesting, because it's not specific on what the is related. Is it of all time? Is it current? Is it just in ring? Is it on the mic? It's hard to really say, because obviously I probably could give different answers for everything. But if we're going to go for the best superstar now and all-rounder, as an all-rounder, I really am enjoying the work of AJ Styles. I think as an all-rounder, I think he gives 5-star in-ring performances. I really enjoy his work on the mic. I think that he has a lot to offer. I think he was well deserved of that main event spot with the Undertaker at WrestleMania. Yeah, he's my favourite at the moment. I enjoy watching AJ Styles work, and when he comes back, I'm intrigued to see what program he's thrown in next. I think he could come back. He could win maybe like a couple of big matches and probably go in a program with Drew McIntyre, someone that I actually didn't mention earlier in the video regarding a lot of the top tier talent that is on Raw. So yeah, for me, he is probably fills that blank at the moment of who I find most entertaining on a week by week basis. So yeah, if I put it all together. But that's all from me anyway here on this particular episode of Ask SCW. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and you can leave a question as well, hashtag Ask SCW, for the next episode that will come here on youtube.com. If you've got any video suggestions you'd like me to do, maybe you can throw them in there as well. I can take those suggestions on board. I'm going to look to try and bring some more videos for you this week as well. Again, thank you to everyone that's been subscribing, supporting the channel. Please spread the word. It really does go a long way to help this channel grow, and I do appreciate it a lot. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. This has been Ask SCW here on SCW, the wrestling channel here on youtube.com. Take care. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.